Hello, and welcome to another episode of Growing for Wholesale Standards. For today's episode, we're going to discuss the USDA grading specifications for green bell peppers. Now, before I get into the exact USDA specifications, I usually like to share some tips and tricks and just some helpful reminders for you growers to try to get the best quality #1 products off of your plot in a little segment called Don't Forget To. I'm not going to include that in this video, but the link for that is below in the description. So if you do need a little refresher or just want some tips and tricks on how to grow beautiful green bell peppers throughout the year, check out that video. Alrighty, so let's just jump right into it. So unlike other fruits and vegetables you may have grown in the past or for wholesale markets, green bell peppers need to be harvested before they're fully mature. Now, green bell peppers take about 70 to 85 days to fully mature, depending on where you live in the U.S. But when they start showing red blushes, when they start to begin to change colors, it's already a little late to pick. So you want to be getting them right before they show any blushing, but still at a good size. They're firm. So when you harvest it and bring it in to grade, or whether you're doing that on your property, by the time it reaches the market, it's not red. It's still a green bell pepper. To discuss this a little bit more, I'm going to jump over to Adam Watson. He helps out growers at our Food Hub Appalachian Harvest in Duffield. He's going to talk a little bit about regular harvesting and when peppers begin to show signs of red blushing.
Start seeing things being too big, too small. Generally, that means it's too infrequent on picking. So you do want to make sure that you're picking often enough to actually, one, get them at the right size, because a pepper that we have a market for at this size, when it starts getting very, very large, the price goes down because it changes the market it's going to. When these were picked off, they may have probably been much less present, maybe just starting a hint of color like this. As they age, that will actually get redder. That's in fact where red bell peppers come from. Nothing wrong with it, but when you're growing green bell peppers, a red one doesn't work.
Alrighty, also while you're harvesting, it's great practice. Just cut those stems down to 1 inch. This will save you in labor time when you're either grading or boxing to go back and then recut down the stems. That way in transport, you don't have stems rubbing up on each other, causing damage and degrading the value of your bell peppers. Alrighty, so here you can see the USDA grading specifications for sweet peppers. Now the USDA does have 2 different types of #1s for sweet peppers, US Fancy and then just US Non-Fancy. So make sure you know what grade you're growing for. Make sure you find that out from your aggregator/distributor or your wholesale buyer. You really want to know what grade you're growing for. What are their specifications for that grade, and when are they expecting to buy it? We talked a little about this earlier, but remember the harvest dates need to align with the buyer's expectations for delivery dates. So a USDA #1, we're just going to dive in here and talk about really what a green pepper should look like. It's the perfect looking pepper. It is firm. There is no cuts, damage, or abrasions or anything like that. We are looking at 4 lobes for a pepper. And lastly, we're looking for consistency in sizing. So we have 2 peppers here. They are nearly identical. These would be great to be boxed together. When we get peppers that are drastically different shapes and sizes, but are, still perfect, they have no cuts or anything like that, grade those in 2 separate boxes because we're grading for uniformity as well. Okay, so what exactly would make a pepper a #2? Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier. When you see signs of blushing on the pepper, it means it was harvested a little bit late, and by the time it reaches the buyer, it'll become red. And since we're selling green bell peppers, that just doesn't work. Now, it's perfectly safe to eat. However, this just isn't a USDA #1. So we're going to box that in a USDA #2, which is going to go to food banks and some other wholesale buyers. Okay, here you can see a pepper that is completely red. So that alone knocks it out from being a #1. But you also see a sunscald damage. Now, the sunscald damage has healed over, and it hasn't ruined the integrity of this pepper. This pepper is still safe to eat. Now, if this was animal bite mark or severe insect damage or some sort of reflection of disease, that would not be a number 2. Since this is a sunscald, minor aesthetic damage to it, it doesn't mean it should be put in the compost. It means it should be put in a number 2. It's still safe to eat. But either the sunscald mark would knock it to be a number 2 or the coloration of it being red. Both factors push it into a number 2. Alrighty, here you can see a pepper that was harvested before it reached its full maturity. However, we talked a little bit about the shape of the pepper, so it doesn't quite have the 4 lobes, and we also see some damage from some insects. So that, coupled with the misshapenness, bumps it to a number 2. If it was more into the pepper, if it was an open wound, that should be in the compost. Number 2s are still perfectly safe to eat. You'd have no problem just biting right into that. What we're talking about through the whole grading number 2 process is what would not be a number 2. We don't have a grade. These shouldn't be graded because they should not come to the marketplace. Throw them to your pigs, your cows, put them in the compost. These are peppers that are seriously degraded. They have major damage, or they have signs of any disease. They have open wounds. They are leaking. They are soft. These would completely knock it out from being brought into the wholesale market. So getting a good idea what would be a number 2 versus a non-number 2 would be good to incorporate during the harvesting. Those that are not a number 2, don't even bother bringing them to get graded. Just toss them into your compost or pig feed. Okay, so once you have everything graded out, box it up and apply your labels. Now, I'm not going to throw in the label section in this video. That is now its own video as well. So if you need a refresher on what labels you should be applying to your boxes, take a look at that one to give you an idea. That's all. Just make sure your box weighs what it should or has the appropriate product count. And really, these marketers are looking for uniformity and consistency. So just getting that every single time really helps build a healthy relationship with you and your buyer, and really can go a long way as the seasons and the years go by. Well, I hope that helps. Any questions, throw it in the comments. We'll get back to you, and I hope to see you next time on Growing for Wholesale Standards.